So the whole idea of this project was it was an experiment for myself to I wanted to build a modular level kit to run as a feasible game level builder kit in Unreal Engine in this case, and I also wanted to see um, to test out using the workflow with nanite meshes and how the unwrapping process would go. And I also wanted to use another workflow I've been wanting to try out, RGBA masked layered materials in UE. So this is the perfect project to try all these things out. So and I knew I wanted to model it using these live prims in Substance Modeler, and especially I wanted to do it in VR because um, I love modeling in VR. It's just so fast. And I also knew that using these live prims, non-destructive booleans, I was going to be able to model these pieces and design them as I went, you know, easily and kind of pretty much effortlessly, you know. As an example there, like it's all non-destructive, so sort of design as you go, decide, change it back, and then because I was going to be using these pieces, start with this basic section and I was going to be using these pieces to expand and then turn these into the other sections I needed, like the 90-degree turn, the four-way junction, T junction, etc. Because this is all non-destructive, it's easy to just reuse these parts without committing to anything or uh, baking any of these down to destructive clay layers. So with any modular kind of kit building, the main thing is to decide on your footprint. So, for instance, the floor might be the first part, or usually will be the first part you build because everything you want everything snapping to the grid for efficient level building. Everything just works out when it's on the grid so much better and faster, easier for the level designer. And Modeler now doesn't at the moment. Hopefully, in the future, we'll get it to be in talk of it. So it's badly needed, in my opinion. But real world dimensions and the proper grid. You can snap to the grid. There's an old fashioned sort of or not an old fashioned grid. There's an early prototype grid that's here from the start of the beta in Modeler, but was never really developed any further. It's like a dynamic size grid, but I don't ever use it. Anyway, I don't think anyone else does either. Um, but it's not a huge issue because I know that I'm building, say, the footprint here. Once I have this, I know what I want this to be. So you usually decide this, okay, I'm going to have my pieces are going to be 2 by 2 meters squared or 4 by 4 meters or 4 by 2 or whatever you want it to be. Or it doesn't have to be square. And in my case, I chose purposely not to build it square. I wanted the main floor section to be rectangular because it allowed me then to create other parts. Basically, because if everything's on an exact square, the footprint it can be sort of boring and repetitive because all the pieces then are going to be square all the way around. So I think if you make them rectangular, um, you can make you can make it more visually interesting. The level I think because the corner pieces and all the different pieces um, will be like an oblong sort of a shape, so it won't be perfectly square. There might be a short part here and then it'll turn 90 degrees with a longer part, or vice versa, long part, short part. And I think it just makes it more visually appealing and less repetitive, especially for a modular sort of a level design. And the other reason is because I want everything to be on the grid, of course, but um, I want to, let's say, for instance, I start here and the level's going to go, I'm going to start with a four-way junction and the level's going to go four directions, spiral around, wind around, and eventually all these junctions are going to come back on each other, converge, meet up, cross over. So you know, I know from the start the way I'm designing these, I know how I want it to work. So if two of these go off in different directions and eventually converge again, as long as the main section is snapping on the grid one way, well then I can match that way up, and then I might be left with a small gap. And to me, this is desirable. A, because it's very easy to fill it in once you design the parts of your kit. So you're going to have, floor fillers, wall fillers. Once you get your main kit made, it's easy to create other pieces off them, and because they're already unwrapped and textured and all the rest, and um, it's easy to do, and they're essentially free because the materials are already being used as instances, and it's just an extra bit of geo. Um, or it can even be the same part scaled, so it's the same. It's using everything the same texture, same material. So draw calls and all the rest in the game engine. But also when you have those, like the demo level that I built, um, from the video that I posted of the playthrough, I think there was three altogether. There was three sections like that where they needed to be joined up, with custom joiner pieces, so small pieces like this, not even the width of a floor tile, and it gave me the opportunity then to create unique sections within the map. So each of them was different. There was three of them that were totally different. So it's a custom section in the map, and even though it only takes, while you're building your level, you do everything else and then come back to them, and it only takes a couple of minutes to fill that in, and then you have a unique part of the map. So to me, it just makes sense, for those couple of reasons. So yeah, started with the footprint here, and then because, as I said, we don't have a grid here, but it doesn't matter because this is built from a cube initially stretched out, but I know it's square here, so I know automatically that it's going to line up to the grid when I bring this, in this case, the blender. And because this is voxels or SDF or whatever, it's not perfect. You don't have an exact um, vertex here, or if you go lower res, this will round it a bit more, and you'll have a couple of verts here when you convert this over to triangles. But I don't really mind any of that because it doesn't really matter. Because when you go back in the blender, you can see you can easily just snap all this stuff onto the grid. And I purposely, where it rounds over, I let it kind of penetrate into the mesh, the next one over, so you're not going to get any light leaks. And it doesn't matter. It looks perfectly fine. Because I'm building this for nanite. Alright, sorry, I have built it for nanite. I wanted solid meshes for lumen lighting system. And I didn't want to have to. Obviously, voxels are manifold, solid, watertight, rather than the other kind of, not old school, but obviously still used, but single sided, where years ago you might build this. This will just be a plane with two triangles, and this might just be two triangles, two triangles, two triangles, and so on. And it's just single sided geo, and then you want everything to snap exactly together here, um, vert to vert. But it's not necessary in this case. As I said, they can interpenetrate, and then none of this really matters because all this geo here is going to be culled out. It's not going to be getting rendered. It's not really costing anything extra in the engine. And for UVs, it doesn't matter either because any of these back facing that will never be seen are in here, for instance, that all just gets scaled way down on the 0 to 1 texture sheet, and put into the corner as a tiny little speck in the corner. So that doesn't need, it doesn't matter. It doesn't take up any UV space, and it doesn't really cost anything in triangles. So it's no big deal. Years ago it was, and you would have a lot of the time single-sided geo, but that can have its own issues as well, as I said, with light leaks and things. And then if you do single-sided geo and you use something like lumen, it doesn't have to be lumen, but particularly with lumen there are issues. You have to put blocker geo, so you have to fill out the level then with blocker geo to make sure that you don't get light leaks where sections join together. And then obviously it's all dynamic lighting, so you don't need light maps or anything like that. So yeah, it's way easier these days to make stuff for game engines, but a lot more fun as well. No light maps, the main part of the fun. So that's the idea behind the whole sort of setup and how wanted to design it, because I also knew that each of these sections were going to have their own 0 to 1 sheet. Normal maps won't be getting baked. You don't need to bake normal maps because um, there's no sharp corners, and also you're not going to get any 100% sharp corners like with low poly geo. And also, I've already done all this, so I've set up RGBA masked system. So these are going to be, say for instance, this all gets UV 0 to 1, and then I'm using the RGBA mask to drive the layered material in UE. So rust, dirt, chipped steel, paint, and then alpha mask for if I want to have different color. So say in this case the doors and the flap here are a different color. There's 2 different types of painted steel. So all that's controlled in the RGBA mask, that drives the material in Unreal Engine. So you have really flexible. I'll show it all later on. I just wanted to go over the modeling part for this video. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, so that's how it starts. And then I can also, when I'm building, the reason I like to do this here, and especially in VR, when I'm building this, so let's say, that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to be snapping this together inside the engine. And whatever's inside this footprint here, snapping on the grid, it can be anything inside here now. As long as it's going to work out on the grid, it doesn't matter really what's in here. And also, I like doing it in VR because you can get right in and see exactly what you're doing, to the millimeter. You can get right in here. And something, for instance, these pipes where they're running in, when this all going to snap across with, say, in the engine, I want to make sure that the pipes here, which I didn't select at that time, so pivot on them is weird. So I'm gonna go over to world, and these pipes aren't really seen, but they're just kind of filler in pieces. So yeah, so I know when they're going through the holes in this joiner piece, in this truss, so I know they join up, and you can go right in there and check in VR without all the headache of trying to navigate on desktop, which I hate now. I started using, I've been using VR for a couple of years now, but just for Modular, and the navigation is it's crazy how good it is, like, compared to, it just feels horrible going back to desktop, even though I've been using desktop 3D programs for probably, half my life, I suppose. It's just horrible going back to desktop navigation, and when you get used to VR navigation. So this is the basics of where I will go from there. Lay in the footprint, right? Going to be snapping to the grid, easy to set up in Blender. These are all going to mirror across nicely, joining up. These are going to join on when everything goes across here in tiles, and anything in here goes. You can just put whatever you like, and you're sort of planning as you go here. So the way I have this set up, right, I only need one of these. I only need half of this. I'm going to keep this full. We need one of these, one wall, one joist, and then it's up to you whether you can take this bolt, for instance, and you can unwrap it, and then, because we're not baking normal maps, you can have stacked UVs, so you can just unwrap one of these and then just place it around. And you might think I'm being haphazard here, but I oftentimes prefer to lay things out like this by hand. Looks a bit more realistic and natural instead of doing everything exactly lined up all the time. It looks unnatural. Nobody goes along and drills holes like that, if they're putting millions of them in and puts all these bolts in and gets them all exactly millimeter perfect. So yeah, I wasn't talking about that though, was I? But it's a point that I wanted to make anyway, because a lot of I see so many people now modeling, and they get to a decent level of modeling, but they don't really. It's the stuff just too many hard, sharp edges all over the place, and everything's lined up perfectly. All the edges are perfect, and it's sort of when you start modeling voxels, you really start to notice how unrealistic a lot of poly modeling can look because of all those issues. People they don't really seem to see that. Like, they're so worried about getting all their quad topology in place that they realize that they don't even see. They put, photorealistic textures on, but it just still doesn't look right because everything, all the edges are so perfect and straight, and everything is lined up 100% perfectly, mathematically perfect, and it just kind of detracts from it. But yeah. So that, as I was saying there, you can either unwrap one of these um, and then duplicate them around, and they'll automatically inherit the UVs, or else. And what I like to do a lot of the times is not to do that, for the reason I just mentioned. If it's not going to cost much extra UV space, or because of your texel resolution setup, you might have a bit of free space in your map. Well, then just unwrap all these separately and have them all with their own texture. And then also, um, when you bake your ambient occlusion, you're going to get AO everywhere rather than baking the AO and then placing all these, and the AO will be only under one of them. So yeah, if you have the extra UV space, why not? It's not going to cost much. They're so small. Um, so that is pretty much that. Yeah. Um, that's pretty much it. Yeah, this is the basic section, so everything works off this. So I'll show how that happens then, how I move off this and design the other pieces. So once I had the straight section built, which is essentially this section here, as I said in the last part of the video, I used that then and saved that scene out. That's straight. Then I'd save another scene out straight away, 90-degree corner, start working on that. And then I'm using these pieces already that I have made, and because they're all live booleans, I can just adjust them to suit at any time. And so that's, let me just grab that pipes as well. So that's that, to make sure it snaps in there. And usually I have these grouped so you don't have to keep selecting them. And then that's that section. And then so this is essentially the middle section, and you can see the footprint, it's not square, and it just makes it a bit more interesting to come through here. And you have different details here. Whereas if it was just a square piece, you would be coming in here and just going out here, and it would be exactly the same. Here and here be no different. So every corner and every straight piece essentially just looks the same. Whereas here you have a little bit of, and then if you coming from this side, it looks different than just a straight corridor. So this is part of the idea of what I was talking about earlier on, and why I think it makes for a better level design, while you're still going to stay on that footprint, because this, even though it's rectangular, this is still snapping to the grid. So I know that if I'm going that way somewhere else, coming a long way here, back and around, and they have to join up, they're going to be on the grid going one way, so you have to join them up the other way, but they'll always fit on the width. So I'm using these pieces. I have this built already, and I have this footprint section, so I know that I'm going to be working everything off that. And I also know that, if a wall here that's going to line up, and then this piece, obviously, because it's a corner piece, for them to join up. And then these other corner pieces here, external corner, and then this truss, the joiner piece, is going to line up here, same half and half again, and the floor section is going to match up, so the walls are going to match up. So that's the theory, I suppose, behind it. And then once you have these, you have them there as reference as well. And then it's just a matter of, as I said, with this piece, once you have the footprint filled in, then all of this inside can be anything, as long as this is going to join up with the next section and the next section. So it leaves you free then to design it whatever way you like. It looks like there's a piece missing from there. Yeah, I would think it was just one of these. No, one of these trimmers. There's this piece here. Yeah, I don't know where it's gone, but there is another piece in there. A small piece like this here. And it carries those joists with those cutouts in it. Yeah, so as I said, there is supposed to be a trimmer piece in there. I'm not sure where it's gone. I haven't been at this scene for a couple of weeks. I haven't needed to be. But yeah, that little piece there joins up there, and then you can see here the beauty of using this non-destructive. So I'm using one of these, but I'm shortening it here. And what I end up doing then in the engine is I already have this, so I end up I cut this off here. I save this piece out from here, so it doesn't have any of this, but I just want to know that it lines up. Once I know everything lines up here in this scene in VR, it's easy then to augment these pieces once you have these built. So I end up creating a little dwarf lintel here. It's capped off at the end. These end up getting capped off as well. I think you can see it, and later on I'll show that in a few minutes up the end, the room sections. So, and then I can, once you have all these pieces, you can reuse them. And the more of these pieces, then you end up little small bits and pieces. For instance, this little piece in the corner, this block, like later on in UE, I end up using this block for different things. Like it even ends up getting used as a small electrical box with cables going into it. So every piece is useful when you start assembling your level, and you'll see that later on in UE if you stay that long. I don't know how long these videos are going to be, but same with all of these. I end up using all of these pieces, different pieces, for things that I realised later on in the engine that I can make new prefabs out of. So the level instances, which you'll see in UE, they're pretty much they're the meat and potatoes of the whole level. There, like something like this 90 section, that will be a level instance in itself. But then I'll make more of them. I make a narrow version of that as well in Unreal, and I end up making the staircases, the U-turns, and different pieces. I end up making, I don't know, nearly 30 of those level instances, all just from these the parts that make up the three main parts, which are the 90, the four-way, and the straight section. And then these parts as well, these joists, are reusable for loads of things. You can use them for trims, you can use them to create new bulkheads in custom sections, just piecing them all together. And like, these don't have to be all exactly modular, snapping to the grid. It helps for parts that are going to be part of the floor, but it's these ones here, you might have the pivot will be in the center, the likes of these joists, and then you can manipulate them and use them for lots of different things once you get into the engine as part of the modular kit. So that's and then these as well, I end up using these 45s a lot as well. They're very handy then to join up and make sections then from level instances, narrow sections, so narrow to wide sections, tunnels, staircase entrances, and different things like that. So when I had that made, then I decided that I would make these room sections. So you have a capped off section, and then you can just remove these walls, and then remove these, and then you have the middle. So this will tile here, and then also that middle section can be whatever 10 sections long, as long as these all match up. It can be any length and any width, and because I already have these made, making this is just simple. All I did was make some extra columns here to carry the middle, straight columns, which are made from these here. And these ones, that's what I was mentioning earlier on. These are just the same, all non-destructive, all easily turned into different pieces. And then these are the same. They're those joists. I made some new roof sections. They're all just made from the first roof section. And that's pretty much it. So all you need to make for these, you already have all the pieces. And then you just need a few extra pieces. These are these dwarf lintels I was talking about, capped off in the end, because you know you have a straight one here. So this one that we've already made at the very start comes up, and then you just use the dwarf lintels to fill in. And once you're in UE, like, you can scale these even after they're unwrapped and textured and everything. You can scale stuff, and it's fine. You have to really scale it to stretch the UVs. But yeah, so that's just an extra couple of pieces. All of these pieces are made. Just needed this, and the roof, and they're all made from these pieces. And then suddenly you have a room that can be any size you like in the engine. It can be 10 miles long if you want, and all you're doing is moving that out to the end and just repeating this section all the way down. And that's pretty much it for these parts. So the next piece I made was the four-way junction, or the crossroads. And of course, I forgot to mention at the start, but the trusty Manny from UE4, in my opinion, a far better mannequin than the one that's in UE5. He's my fave. So yeah, at the start, you want to throw him in here, get your scale reference. You know, you say, oh look, we can go into VR and then we can, you know, get a good idea of what it's looking like. But in my opinion, it's hard to kind of get a true sense. Nothing beats going into the engine and having a look, because I'm sitting on the couch at the moment, but if I stand up and then I try to scale this up and get this so Manny's about my height, and then look around, you kind of get an idea, but it's still, the scales feel sort of weird. It's hard to get an exact scale. So for me, I'm going to sit back down and you know, the engine is the best place to do that. But same again here, I just have the base section here, and I'm using that then to make sure that I'm snapping on the grid again, and this will snap. And all this is using all the same parts again. There's the external corners from the 90, the trusses, obviously all these bits and pieces to fill in. And then the only new pieces I made, I jigged around the floor, and because all these tiles, you know, these tiles, you can go right in and make them any size you like. So for the likes of this here, you know, I'll have a piece here. This floor needs to come out of each pathway from this four-way section. So once I have that in place, these are all mirrored. So when I bring these into Unreal, I'm only going to have a quarter of this, half of this, and then I'm just going to, the pivots will all be in the center. This will be built in 000 in Unreal, and then I'll just have, all that's going to be coming out of here is one of these. I'll already have all these pieces, so I only need this, half of this, and a quarter of this, and that's all I need to take out then, and that's enough to build this then. Rebuild it then in Unreal, because obviously I want to save on texture space, UV space, so I can't put all this onto one UV sheet because it's too big. So I'm doing it. This might take up. That might be on one. That's on one. So two or three texture sheets, and that's all that is. Then it's easy. You're, as I said, it's all non-destructive. So just taking these pieces from the 90, and just building that, making sure it all fits, and then from this four-way, there's our walls and our truss that we've already made, and then pop them in there, and that's all you need then. Well, I made some new cables and that in here just to expose these pipes and cables here, just to give it a little bit of extra interest, make it look like they're joining up with these junctions here. And then the engine, I think I stopped them short here, so it looks like they're teeing off and going back along the corridor this way, so they won't be here. So that's all that is. Like, you're just putting bits you've already made, capping that off, and because this pillar is like this, column is like this, it gives you a nice little inset, and that's your T junction. So that's that piece made. So that means you have your straight section, your 90 section, your four-way, and your T junction, and then that's all the pieces I made in Modular for level sections, and everything else was built in the engine using all these parts. And that was it then for Modular for the level sections, and then it was just on to making props. So no modular kit is complete level building kit without some props. And the main problem for me with the props is that, if I didn't rein myself in, I'd just keep on building these forever, because they're so easy to build here, and a lot of fun and all the rest of it. But you just have to, at some stage, you have to stop, because all of these are the same. These are going to be, now some of these are going to be combined, like these will be all in one texture sheet or whatever. This will be its own material. This was one of the only things in the level that uses its own 0 to 1 material. It doesn't use this master material. But let's say, for instance, these two were on a texture sheet. These two were on one. Or sorry, this, just to keep the textile density. This goes on with something else, I think, or else that goes on a 2K, because I was trying to aim for 4K here, and then you can scale them down in engine later on, but better to alter the texture at 4K and then scale them down or res them down. Yeah, so you're going to be combining stuff that makes sense. Put them all on one texture sheet to save, and the amount of 4K maps you have to bring into the engine, and also you want to keep the textile density equal, which I'll show in Blender, or as close to equal as possible. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. So yeah, I'll just decide then when I get in, right, I'm going to put these on and these on and these on, and that's it. I built that first, but then I thought it didn't really suit the style I was going for. It looked a bit too not futuristic, because the whole thing is meant to be futuristic, but I'm going for more of a heavy industrial, grim dark sort of 40K kind of sci-fi, rather than clean and pristine sort of stuff. So I wanted it all to be a bit sort of high tech, but low tech at the same time. So yeah, that was all the props, and as I said, you have to decide how many you want to put in. You don't want to put in too few, or the level, you can't really get much variation. But even a small set like this can go a long way, because you can mix and match. So the likes of this, you can have a pipe, a pipe like this. I'm gonna turn off that pipe like that. Pipe with one of them on it. Pipe with two of them on it. Pipe with one of them, and one of these. Pipe it with just one of them. A pipe with one of them and one of them. So you can get, different. It's the whole idea of the modular kit, and then you can mix and match different parts together. A couple of different vents. These are the same, pretty much exactly the same, except that's angled to go up here, and you're nearly getting one for free there. Same with these. They're pretty much you're getting one for free because they're the same model. Few slight adjustments, and it's all same thing. It's all it's all in the live frame, so you can do whatever you like. And then there's one other thing I forgot to show, and that is the doors. Right, within the door scene, the doors themselves, and then I met a couple extra props. These change again later on, but a few light props, strip light, spotlight, just to mix up from the overhead grill lights. Then a little computery code thing for the door. Um, some pipes here, cables that you can. They can go in the door here, but I also end up using these around the level. Just put them in at different parts. Make it look like the place is being powered by some sort of source. There's a slightly different one, so a couple of different variations of doors. Let me see what's in there. Okay, so these are, there was these sort of plain doors, and then there was these ones here. These are double doors, so both sets of these are double doors, and then this is a single door here for this single door frame. And these are the same thing again, like they're different doors, slightly different designs, but they're both built from the same thing by just building one and then just moving around the live frames to change the design on the fly, making it really easy again to make variations. And if you wanted it, you could keep on going, but you have to stop somewhere, because you have to remember that you can model whatever you like, but it all has to be unwrapped and textured. And the more you do, the more textures, especially because all this stuff is on 0 to 1 unique space. Yeah, you have to kind of keep in mind as well that you should have a limit there, some sort of a limit. If you're building for a game, if you're not building for a game, it doesn't matter. You can pretty much put as much in as you can handle, or as much as your GPU RAM can take for rendering or whatever. But so yeah, that was those sections. The doors, single door, double door, and again, they're built then so that they're going to snap into your piece. And this one here is designed so that it goes in to the side of one of those straight pieces. If you swap out the wall for the different wall variations, you can swap this out, and the same thing then, it's going to fit perfectly in between these. Like here, yeah, you can see it here. There would be one of these either side, and the single door in the middle, and then this is just a little tunnel section. Again, just to add some variation to the level, so you can stack these, then make the tunnel as long as you want in the engine, and then just cap it off at the end. And then it's going to be getting capped off. I'll be doing this in the engine once I know that it's all snapping together. And so that's pretty much it for the doors, and that's pretty much it for everything, all the modeling and the things. And like, there's not much to show. There's no, these are the secrets to doing this kind of modeling, because there's no secrets. It's as easy as it gets. You're just using boxes and cylinders, and that's all. There's not. It's as easy as it gets. This kind of modeling, you don't have to worry about topology or moving verts around or any of that messing. It's just, that's why I thought I'd rather do an overview. It's probably boring for people to listen to me going on, but it's better than doing a tutorial on how to make rectangles, because it's very straightforward, all this stuff. Like, this is just all different pieces. I think I've collapsed that down to clay. So let me take this one. I'll just give an example here. So this is all made of the same piece, and all it is then starts off with a cube, um, rounded corners, booleans. As I said, like it's simple stuff. Like these are just same thing. Tapered cubes. There's not really much to say about it. Same thing. Cubes and not even cubes. These are the cubes. Let me get in here. Yeah, that's all. That's all that is. And then, what makes this stuff? It's all simple simple shapes and everything, but it's the texture and the materials that make it look decent enough. That give it the sort of final look that it has. And then obviously the design. So how you design the stuff so that it all comes together. Like this, for instance, all these pieces, same thing. These are all designed so that's going to back up. That's going to back up onto that, and then it's I have it here so that it's going to fit in here. So when the door opens and closes, it's going to fit in. And then when I mirror these across, because I'm going to be mirroring all this to save UV space, when they mirror across, and then there's going to be Z fighting when these mirror across. So I just have this piece. It's a single piece on its own here. Well, the final piece is, it's just a threshold piece that caps over that where these Z fight, because they're coming together across the mirror. See the Z fighting here? So that's all that is. That's the threshold to cap. But same again in the theory of the modular level. This threshold, I ended up using this all over the level then. I used it to build bulkheads. I used it to build columns either side of entranceways. And when it's shaded, materials are on, textures and all, it looks good. And then you can arrange some of them into a little structure. And it ends up looking pretty decent. And you get it for free then, because you're going to be using it anyway. So that is my take on the whole modeling end of things. And I'll go over the Blender stuff. I was going to do all this in one video, but it's already going on really long. So I'll do another next part I'll do in Blender. Maybe I'll roll Blender and Substance Painter into one, and then the last one I'll do Unreal. Alright, then hope it was not too boring for people and somewhat useful. Alright then, cheers, thanks, good luck.